Dr. Rebecca Stone woke up to the worst sound she could imagine. Emergency sirens screaming through the metal halls of the prison ship. Her head pounded as she sat up in her tiny cell, trying to remember how she got here. The Helios Penitentiary wasn't supposed to be her destination. She was a doctor, not a killer. But the Galactic Court didn't see it that way when they found out about her secret research. During the war between humans and the alien Dominion, Rebecca had developed new medicines that helped human soldiers survive terrible injuries. The alien judges called it illegal human enhancement and sentenced her to life in prison. Now she was trapped on this ship with murderers, pirates, and the worst criminals in the galaxy, all heading to a place called Black Rock Station, a prison planet where nobody ever came back from. The ship shook violently, throwing Rebecca against the wall. Through her small window, she could see other prisoners running through the corridors. Some were screaming, others were fighting. The aliens looked different from humans. Some had extra arms, others had scales or fur, and a few glowed with strange colors. But they all had one thing in common right now. They were angry and scared. Rebecca pressed herself against her cell door, listening to the chaos outside. She could hear the prison guards shouting orders, but their voices were getting weaker. The guards were losing control of the ship. Suddenly, her cell door clicked open. The emergency systems had unlocked all the doors automatically. She stepped into the hallway and immediately saw something that made her stomach turn. A young alien prisoner was lying on the floor, bleeding badly from a deep cut on his chest. The automatic medical robots were sparking and broken, destroyed in the fighting. Nobody was helping the wounded creature. Everyone was too busy fighting or running away. Rebecca looked around nervously. She could run to a safer part of the ship and hide until this was over. That would be the smart thing to do. But she was a doctor, and she had taken an oath to help people, even if those people were aliens who might kill her. She knelt down beside the bleeding prisoner and ripped apart her prison uniform to make bandages. The alien's blood was purple instead of red, but wounds were wounds. She pressed the cloth against the cut and applied pressure, just like she had done thousands of times before. The alien's eyes opened and looked at her with surprise. More wounded prisoners started appearing as the fighting spread through the ship. Rebecca found herself moving from one injured person to another, using whatever she could find to help them. She used a broken piece of metal as a knife to cut bandages. She mixed water with cleaning chemicals to make antiseptic. When she ran out of cloth, she used pages from books to stop bleeding. The strangest thing was that nobody tried to hurt her. Even the most dangerous-looking aliens would step aside and let her work. Word was spreading through the ship that the human doctor was helping everyone, no matter what species they were or what crimes they had committed. A massive alien warrior with 4 arms was brought to her with a terrible burn across his back. In the normal world, he would have been her enemy. His species had killed thousands of humans during the war. But right now, he was just someone who needed help. Rebecca cleaned his wound and wrapped it carefully, ignoring the sounds of fighting all around them. As she worked, other prisoners began to gather around her, forming a protective circle. They watched her hands move with skill and precision, saving lives while everything else fell apart. Some of them started helping, holding bandages or carrying water. For the first time since the riot started, there was a small island of calm in the chaos. Hours later, when the ship's security forces finally regained control, they found something unexpected. In one section of the ship, dozens of wounded prisoners were being cared for by other inmates, all organized around one human woman with blood on her hands and determination in her eyes. Captain Williams, the head of security, stared at Rebecca in amazement. He had never seen anything like this in 20 years of prison transport duty. The most violent criminals in the galaxy were working together to save lives, all because one human doctor had decided to do the right thing. By the time they reached Black Rock Station, everyone on the ship knew Rebecca Stone's name. She had earned something more valuable than money and more dangerous than weapons. She had earned respect. Black Rock Station was held with a name. The moment Rebecca stepped off the transport ship, she knew this place was designed to break people. The mining prison sat on a dead planet, where the air was thin and the ground was hard as iron. Prisoners worked 18-hour shifts digging precious metals from deep underground tunnels. And if you couldn't work, you didn't eat. It was that simple. The warden made the rules clear on her first day. Medical care wasn't a right. It was something you had to earn. Only prisoners who had protection from the gang leaders got real treatment when they were hurt. Everyone else had to hope their injuries weren't too serious, because the prison's medical bay was a joke. They had one alien doctor who didn't care about anyone, and a few medical robots that broke down more often than they worked. Rebecca tried to blend in at first. She got assigned to work in the medical bay, treating small cuts and giving out pain medicine to prisoners who could afford it. She kept her head down and her mouth shut, hoping nobody would remember what she had done on the transport ship. But keeping quiet wasn't her nature, and this place tested every moral belief she had ever held. The tunnels were dangerous. Every day, prisoners came back with injuries from cave-ins, equipment failures, and accidents with the heavy machinery. The alien medical staff would look at a wounded prisoner and ask one question: who's your protection? If you couldn't name a gang leader who would pay for your treatment, you got sent back to your cell to heal on your own or die trying. Rebecca watched good people suffer from injuries she could easily fix. She saw prisoners lose fingers that could have been saved and develop infections that could have been prevented with basic care. Every night, she went to sleep angry and frustrated, knowing that people were dying because of a system that treated medical care like a luxury item. Everything changed on a Tuesday morning in Mining Sector 7. Rebecca was in the medical bay when the ground started shaking violently. The emergency alarms went off, and within minutes, reports came in of a major tunnel collapse. Dozens of prisoners were trapped underground, and many more were injured by falling rocks and twisted metal. Rebecca grabbed medical supplies and ran toward the mine entrance, expecting to see rescue teams preparing to help the wounded. Instead, she found chaos and confusion. The prison guards were standing around talking to each other, while injured prisoners lay on the ground, bleeding and calling for help. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. She ran up to Captain Rodriguez, the head guard, and asked when the medical teams were going down to help the trapped prisoners. He looked at her with cold eyes and explained the prison's policy. They would wait for the mining equipment to clear the tunnels first, then assess the situation. Prisoner safety wasn't the priority. Protecting the expensive machinery was. Rebecca stared at him in shock. There are people dying down there right now. Every minute we wait, more of them will die from their injuries. The captain shrugged. That's not my problem. Those prisoners knew the risks when they chose a life of crime. For the next 6 hours, Rebecca watched helplessly as injured prisoners were brought to the surface. Some had broken bones that could have been set properly if treated immediately. Others had internal injuries that got worse with every passing hour. The alien medical staff treated only the prisoners who could pay, leaving the rest to suffer. That night, Rebecca couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about David Chun, a quiet human prisoner who had been caught in the tunnel collapse. He had a punctured lung that needed immediate treatment, but he didn't have gang protection, so the medical staff ignored him. Rebecca watched him struggle to breathe for hours before he finally died in his cell, alone and in pain. Something broke inside Rebecca that night. She made a decision that would change everything. If the prison system wouldn't provide proper medical care, she would do it herself, rules or no rules. She started small and careful. After the medical bay closed each night, she would sneak out her cell and visit the injured prisoners who had been turned away during the day. She brought basic supplies she had stolen from the medical bay and used techniques she had learned during her research years. She worked by dim light, whispering instructions to patients and showing them how to care for their wounds. Word spread quietly through the prison that the human doctor was providing free medical care after hours. Prisoners began seeking her out, not just humans, but aliens too. She treated everyone equally, asking no questions about their crimes or their ability to pay. Her only rule was simple. If you were hurt, she would help you. The breakthrough moment came when she saved Tommy Williams, a respected human prisoner who had been written off as a lost cause. He had been stabbed in a fight with another prisoner, and the wound had become infected. The official medical staff said he would die within days and refused to waste medicine on him. Rebecca worked on Tommy for 3 nights straight, using techniques that amazed even her. She cleaned his wound with makeshift antiseptic, stitched him up with thread pulled from prison uniforms, and created antibiotics from mold she cultivated in hidden corners of the prison. Against all odds, Tommy not only survived but made a complete recovery. After that, Rebecca's reputation exploded throughout Black Rock Station. Prisoners and guards alike began to whisper about the miracle doctor who could save people that everyone else had given up on. The prisoners started calling her the ghost medic because Rebecca seemed to appear out of nowhere whenever someone was dying. One moment a prisoner would be bleeding out in a dark corner, convinced her time was up, and the next moment Rebecca would be there with her makeshift medical kit, working miracles with whatever supplies she could find. 6 months after the tunnel collapse, Rebecca had built something nobody thought was possible in Black Rock Station: hope. But it wasn't just hope she was building. She was creating an entire underground medical network that operated right under the noses of the prison administration. It started with simple things. Prisoners who worked in the kitchen would accidentally drop food near Rebecca's cell. Food that happened to contain basic medical supplies hidden inside. Others who had cleaning duties would leave buckets of water mixed with stolen antiseptic in places where Rebecca could find them. Even prisoners from species that had been at war with humans were helping her, because pain and suffering looked the same on everyone. Rebecca's biggest breakthrough came when she realized she needed help. She couldn't be everywhere at once, and the number of people seeking her treatment was growing every day. She started looking for prisoners she could trust, people who had the intelligence and courage to learn basic medical skills. Her first student was Billy Rodriguez, a former human soldier who had been imprisoned for deserting during the war. Billy was smart, calm under pressure, and desperate to do something good with his life. Rebecca taught him how to clean wounds, set broken bones, and recognize the signs of serious infections. Within weeks, Billy was handling basic medical cases on his own. Next came Luna Park, a quiet woman who had been convicted of smuggling medicine to rebel colonies. Luna had a gentle touch and an amazing ability to calm frightened patients. Rebecca trained her in surgical techniques, showing her how to stitch wounds and remove foreign objects from injuries. Luna practiced on pieces of fruit and scraps of meat until her hands were steady enough to work on real patients. The most surprising addition to Rebecca's team was Zane Cooper, a former gang leader who controlled a large section of the prison. Zane had initially approached Rebecca to demand payment for allowing her to operate in his territory. Instead, he ended up becoming fascinated by her work. He had never seen anyone care so much about helping others, and it changed something inside him. Zane became Rebecca's protector and organizer, using his gang connections to smuggle supplies and create safe spaces for medical treatments. As her network grew, Rebecca began tackling more complex medical challenges. The prison housed dozens of different alien species, each with unique biology and medical needs. The official medical staff barely understood human anatomy, let alone the complex physiological differences between species. But Rebecca was determined to learn. She studied injured aliens like a scientist, observing how their bodies responded to different treatments. She discovered that some species healed faster with heat therapy, while others needed cold treatments. She learned that certain medicines that helped humans could be deadly to other species, while some alien remedies worked better on humans than human medicine did. Her most famous case happened when a massive alien prisoner named Gorak was brought to her with a strange condition. Gorak's species had blue blood that carried oxygen differently than human blood, and he was dying for what looked like severe anemia. The prison medical staff had given up on him, saying there was nothing they could do for his alien physiology. Rebecca spent 3 days studying Gorak's condition, consulting with other alien prisoners about their species' biology. She realized that his blood wasn't the problem. His body wasn't producing enough of a specific enzyme that helped process oxygen. Working with improvised equipment in a hidden room behind a prison laundry, Rebecca managed to extract blood from a healthy alien of the same species, process it to concentrate the needed enzymes, and transfuse it back into Gorak. The procedure should have been impossible without proper medical equipment, but Rebecca made it work using creativity and determination. Gorak not only survived, but made a complete recovery. Word of this miracle spread to the prison like wildfire, and Rebecca's reputation grew to legendary proportions. The prison administration started noticing strange things happening. The death rate among prisoners had dropped dramatically, but they couldn't figure out why. Prisoners who should have died from their injuries were returning to work within weeks. Even more puzzling, prisoners from different species and rival gangs were cooperating with each other in ways that had never happened before. Warden Thompson launched investigation after investigation, trying to find the source of these changes. He questioned guards, searched cells, and even offered rewards for information. But Rebecca's network had grown too large and too loyal. Every prisoner in Black Rock Station, even those who had never been treated by her personally, knew that Rebecca was the reason their friends and family members were still alive. The most shocking development came when the prison guards themselves started seeking Rebecca's help. The official medical bay was designed to treat prisoners, not staff. And when guards got injured or sick, they often had to suffer through it or pay expensive fees for outside medical care. But word spread that the ghost medic would treat anyone who needed help, no questions asked. Guard Captain Lewis was the first to approach Rebecca, secretly. He had developed a painful infection in his hand that the prison's medical system couldn't treat properly. Desperate and in constant pain, he took the enormous risk of asking a prisoner for help. Rebecca treated his infection successfully and asked for nothing in return except his promise to look the other way when she needed to move around the prison after hours. Soon, other guards were quietly seeking Rebecca's help for various medical problems. She treated everything from chronic back pain to serious injuries, building a network of protection that extended throughout the prison's power structure. Even some guards who didn't need medical treatment began to respect her work and the positive changes she was bringing to the facility. The Great Escape began at exactly 2:17 a.m. on a cold Tuesday morning. Rebecca was treating a prisoner with a broken arm in one of her hidden medical stations when the lights went out throughout Black Rock Station. Emergency lighting flickered on, casting everything in an eerie red glow. Then she heard the sound that would change everything. The electronic locks on every cell door clicking open simultaneously. Someone had hacked the prison's computer system, and every single prisoner in the facility was now free to walk out of their cells. Within minutes, the corridors erupted into chaos as thousands of the galaxy's most dangerous criminals realized they had a chance at freedom. Rebecca's first instinct was to run to safety, but safety didn't exist anymore. Explosions echoed through the prison as different groups of prisoners fought for control of key areas. Some wanted to steal ships from the landing bay. Others were trying to take over the communication center to call for rescue. The most violent ones just wanted revenge against the guards who had made their lives miserable. As Rebecca made her way through the chaos, prisoners kept finding her and asking the same question, "Doc, come with us. We're getting out of here." Billy Rodriguez grabbed her arm in the main corridor and practically begged her to join his escape group. "We've got a plan to steal one of the guard ships. There's room for you, and we'll need a medic where we're going." Rebecca looked around at the violence erupting everywhere and made a decision that surprised even herself. Instead of running toward freedom, she ran toward the Central Medical Bay, the largest treatment facility in the prison. If she was going to help people, she needed proper equipment and space to work. The medical bay was in chaos when she arrived. The alien medical staff had abandoned their posts and were hiding in a secure bunker somewhere in the prison. Medical equipment was scattered everywhere, some of it broken by panicked prisoners looking for drugs or supplies. But the main surgical suite was still intact. Rebecca began setting up an emergency hospital right there in the center of the prison. She dragged medical equipment into position, organized supplies, and prepared for what she knew was coming. In a battle this size, people were going to get hurt badly, and someone needed to be ready to save their lives. The first wounded prisoner arrived within an hour, a human named Pete Johnson, who'd been shot in the leg during a firefight with prison guards. As Rebecca worked to stop his bleeding, more injured people began arriving. Some were prisoners who had been hurt in fights with guards. Others were guards who had been injured by prisoners. Rebecca treated them all the same way. Word spread quickly through the prison that the ghost medic had turned the medical bay into a neutral zone. Something amazing began to happen. Prisoners from rival gangs who had been fighting each other for years started working together to protect Rebecca's makeshift hospital. They formed a defensive perimeter around the medical bay and declared off-limits to the fighting. Zane Cooper, her former student who now led one of the largest escape groups, came to see her personally. "Rebecca, you're insane. This whole place is falling apart, and you're setting up a hospital? Come with us. We could be off this rock in 2 hours." Rebecca looked up from the surgery she was performing on a wounded guard. "These people need help, Zane. I can't just leave them to die." "The guards would leave you to die without thinking twice about it," Zane argued. "That's what makes us different from them," Rebecca replied, never stopping her work. Zane stared at her for a long moment, then nodded with respect. "You're either the bravest person I've ever met or the craziest. Maybe both." He turned to his gang members. "Nobody touches the medical bay. Anyone who hurts the doc or interferes with her work answers to me personally." Similar declarations came from other gang leaders throughout the prison. Even species that hated each other were cooperating to protect Rebecca's neutral zone. The medical bay became like a small island of peace in the middle of a war zone. For 12 hours, Rebecca performed surgery while battles raged outside. She removed bullets, set broken bones, and treated severe burns from plasma weapons. Her assistants Billy, Luna, and others worked alongside her, treating minor injuries so Rebecca could focus on the life-threatening cases. The most incredible moment came when Captain Lewis, the guard who Rebecca had treated months earlier, arrived at the medical bay carrying a wounded prisoner. He had been shot while trying to protect civilian contractors during the escape attempt, but he still made the effort to bring an injured prisoner to safety. "I figured this was the one place in the prison where people still cared about saving lives," he told Rebecca as she worked on a shoulder wound. When reinforcement troops finally arrived from other planets and regained control of Blackrock Station, they found something unprecedented. In the central medical bay, dozens of prisoners and guards were being treated side by side by other prisoners and guards working together. The neutral zone had held through the entire battle. Many prisoners had successfully escaped during the chaos, but Rebecca wasn't one of them. When the commanding officer of the reinforcement troops asked her why she hadn't tried to escape, her answer was simple: "My patients needed me more than I needed freedom." The aftermath of the Great Escape changed everything at Blackrock Station. Rebecca's actions during the crisis had proven something that shocked even the prison administration. Prisoners and guards could work together when they had a common goal. Her legend grew beyond the prison walls as stories of the neutral zone spread throughout the galaxy. Rebecca remained in her cell, but now everyone knew the truth. She wasn't really a prisoner anymore. She was something much more powerful. She was hope with medical training. 3 years after the Great Escape, Rebecca Stone had become something that shouldn't have existed in the galaxy, a prisoner who ran her own prison. The irony wasn't lost on anyone, especially the Dominion officials who had once condemned her as a dangerous criminal. Now they found themselves depending on her expertise to keep Blackrock Station functioning. The transformation had been gradual but undeniable. After the escape attempt, the prison administration realized they had a choice: work with Rebecca or watch their facility descend into chaos again. Warden Thompson, once her biggest opponent, now came to her for advice on medical policies. The official alien medical staff had been replaced with a team that followed Rebecca's protocols and treatment methods. Rebecca's daily routine looked nothing like that of a typical prisoner. She woke up each morning not in a cramped cell, but in a converted medical suite that served as both her living quarters and personal office. The Dominion government had granted her unprecedented authority over all medical operations at Blackrock Station, making her effectively the chief medical officer of the entire facility. But the real story wasn't happening inside the prison walls. It was spreading across the galaxy like wildfire. Every prisoner who had been released from Blackrock Station carried Rebecca's medical knowledge with them. Billy Rodriguez had joined the Rebel Medical Corps and was using her techniques to save fighters in remote colonies. Luna Park had started an underground medical school on a smuggler's moon, teaching Rebecca's methods to anyone willing to learn. The impact was staggering. Criminal organizations that had once lost half their members to treatable injuries were now operating with medics trained in Rebecca's survival techniques. Mercenary groups were paying fortunes to hire anyone who could prove they had studied under the ghost medic of Blackrock. Even legitimate medical facilities were quietly adopting her improvised treatment methods when dealing with trauma cases their expensive equipment couldn't handle. Rebecca's reputation had grown so legendary that simply claiming to be one of her students was like carrying a passport through the galaxy's most dangerous places. Pirates would give safe passage to merchant ships if the captain could prove they had a Rebecca-trained medic on board. Warring alien factions would call temporary ceasefires to allow her students to treat wounded soldiers from both sides. The turning point came when stories reached the Dominion capital about human medics performing impossible surgeries in battlefield conditions. Reports flooded into Rebecca's students, saving lives that even the most advanced alien medical technology had given up on. The galactic government began to realize that something much bigger than a prison medical program was happening. Admiral Chun, head of Dominion Intelligence, arrived at Black Rock Station with a full investigation team. What they discovered in Rebecca's quarters shocked them to their core. She had been running a secret communication network that connected human prisoners across dozens of facilities throughout the galaxy, using hidden transmitters and coded messages. She had been sharing medical knowledge and coordinating training programs on a scale that spanned entire star systems. The evidence was overwhelming. Rebecca had created detailed medical manuals adapted for dozens of alien species and environmental conditions. She had developed new surgical techniques that worked with improvised equipment. Most importantly, she had built a network of human medics who were changing the nature of combat medicine throughout the galaxy. Admiral Chen confronted Rebecca directly. "You're running an unauthorized medical network that spans half the galaxy. Do you understand how this looks to the Dominion government?" Rebecca looked up from the medical journal. She was writing and smiled calmly. "It looks like humans are saving lives that your medical system was content to let die. You're a convicted criminal operating outside the bound of galactic law," the Admiral pressed. "I'm a doctor doing what doctors are supposed to do. Heal people," Rebecca replied. "The fact that your laws consider that criminal says more about your laws than it does about me." The investigation revealed the full scope of Rebecca's influence. Her former patients had become leaders in criminal organizations, rebel groups, and mercenary companies across the galaxy. They all shared one thing in common: absolute loyalty to the woman who had saved their lives when no one else cared. Rebecca had inadvertently created the most powerful underground network in galactic history, all based on a simple principle: everyone deserved medical care. The Dominion government faced an impossible decision. They could eliminate Rebecca and risk turning her into a martyr, potentially sparking rebellions across human-controlled territories. Or they could accept that she had fundamentally changed how the galaxy approached combat medicine and try to work with her. More troubling was the realization that Rebecca's network represented something the Dominion had never seen before: humans organizing across species and political boundaries based on shared humanitarian values. Her influence was creating connections between groups that had been enemies for generations, all united by respect for her medical philosophy. After weeks of debate, the Dominion made their choice. They offered Rebecca full pardons, prestigious positions, and unlimited resources if she would work officially within their medical system. She refused every offer, choosing to remain in her cell at Black Rock Station. "Why?" Admiral Chen asked during their final meeting. "You could have anything you want: freedom, power, resources to help even more people." Rebecca gestured toward a window overlooking the prison yard, where former enemies were working together in the medical training program she had established. "My legend is worth more than my freedom. Every human prisoner who hears my story knows that we don't abandon each other. Every alien who gets treated by one of my students learns that humans value all life. I'm more powerful as a symbol than I could ever be as a free woman." The Admiral left Black Rock Station with a disturbing report for his superiors. Rebecca Stone had become the most feared medic in the galaxy, not because of the lives she took, but because of the lives she saved. In a universe where humans were considered expendable, she had proven that human compassion, determination, and ingenuity could be the most powerful forces of all. Rebecca remained in her cell by choice, knowing that her imprisonment served a greater purpose than her freedom ever could.